This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 292 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, it's that time of year. It is lessons learned from 6 years of writing full time. From yours truly, Sasha Black. It is a solo episode and my favourite episode of the year. So no intro this week because it's a long one and my voice may die by the end of the episode. I am going to include the links to the other annual lessons. So you've got year 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 in the show notes if you want to go back and listen to them. I have written this so you can go and read along if you would like, and there are a ton of graphics that I'm putting in the show notes. You may want to go to my website rather than just looking at the app if that's where you're listening. Okay. It is always a wonder to me when we hit these annual episodes because time is such an enigma. It passes in these great blinks and then really slow swathes of time that kind of tiptoe and crawl by. I'm not sure if it's my age or whether since 2020 and that kind of infamous year that time has been even more of an oddity. I know that when we were all locked down, it was wild. Time did these bizarre things. But I am still really taken back and taken by a surprise when these episodes appear in my schedule. Mostly because I'm always like, fuck, I need to write a 5,000 word solo show. And so I'm always like, oh my God, I need to make sure I've given myself enough time because obviously, usually I just rock up to the podcast each week and give you my little spiel and my little blurb. But the last 2 years in particular have been life-changing. And so I think that I am even more grateful for these episodes and this moment in time to stop and reflect and look back at just how far I have come. Mostly because I can't fucking believe it, if I'm perfectly honest. I worked for so long, earning very, very little, that I still find it hard to acclimatise, and I think I must be in about month 18 of this now. So, okay, as usual, the first thing I'm going to do is the income update. And just before we do that, I've got 4 lessons for you this year plus my income update. Okay. Last year, I gave you really hard line figures. I always promised that once I hit 6 figures that I would do that for you, and I did. I am not going to be giving you exact figures this year because I just don't want to. I don't feel comfortable doing it. I did it once. I fulfilled my promise. What I will say is that you will probably be able to work it out. For those of you that have been following and have listened to these episodes, or even if you're a patron, I gave some quite clear updates recently. But what I will say is that for those of you who have been following for a while and have listened to these episodes in the past, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to figure it out. This year was a 340% increase on last year. And last year I was a 6-figure author. So hopefully that gives you a clear indication I am very definitely a multi-6-figure author. That's at gross. I am also a multi-6-figure author at net too. So, I mean, that is a frankly inconceivable increase, a inconceivable amount of money. And if I'm perfectly honest, I'm definitely still reeling. Everybody told me that writing in such a small niche, a niche that, isn't in the top charts, isn't the bestsellers, everybody said don't do it, it won't make any money. They all said, do it because if you love it and blah, 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 but nobody thought I'd be able to make any money. And, I fucking written this and I'm still struggling to give you words. Obviously I ad lib on this, but truly There are so few words to explain the emotional roller coaster that I have been on in the last 18 months. I'm going to give you some more statistics. So of that multi-six-figure income, 65% was straight from book royalties. 19% was Shopify income, so my website income. And for me, I added both of those together because whether they came from stores, audiobooks, or Shopify, they're all still book royalties. That's still book income, meaning that 84% of my income was from books. Now, that was excluding Kickstarter. So if you include Kickstarter, because Kickstarter is also book income, then it was 96% of my income. 96% of my multi-six-figure income was from books, which means that 4% included everything else. For example, podcast sponsorship, ALCS, speaker fees, things like that. 6 to 7% of my total income was from audiobooks. That was from license fees and royalties. And I'm very grateful because all of my books, with the exception of the latest two, which is Crimson Kisses and Crimson Curses, which I think they probably have now earned out, but the accounting quarters are always at least a quarter behind. So we're actually always like 6 months behind. We haven't had enough quarters basically since they've been released, but everything else has earned out. So I have earned back my advance and I am now earning royalties. And I actually have sold so many audiobooks that I'm now earning a higher rate of audiobook royalty as well, which is great. When I left my day job in 2019, my book sales, fuck me. So I've written this, okay? I've written out this episode, and still now having to speak out some of these numbers, I'm just fucking astonished, to be perfectly honest. But when I left my day job, my book sales were 17% of my income. But you have to remember that my income was significantly smaller because this year's book sales are a 9,185% increase on the amount of those sales. So compared to that first year after I left my day job, my sales are over 9,000% higher. Fucking hell. It's just, these are bonkers numbers. Like, is this real? Did this happen? Anyway, so of course, the biggest change over the last 6 years is that I no longer do freelance at all. I do nothing. I only work for myself now. And the thing is, you know, I left my day job and I felt like I was working for myself because my time was my own and I got to choose when I could work, but I was still doing freelance, which meant I still had to do work for other people. And last year when I did my six-figure episode, so when it was 5 years, I was still over 10% of my income was still from freelance. This year it was 0. I am beyond proud of this. I also want to be really fucking clear. I am extremely grateful for the years of freelance that I did. I learned so much. I fucking adore the teams that I worked with. I adore every single person that I worked with. You know, I did freelance virtual assistanting for authors. I worked with Ally. All of them. I love all of them. And I am so, so grateful for the support and the community that it gave me. And the fact that if it weren't for those freelance gigs, I wouldn't have been able to leave the corporate world. So I will forever be grateful for the support that they gave me in getting to this point. But I am also equally proud of the fact that I no longer have freelance. And it is terrifying, I'll be honest. Like, you know, if you have a bad sales month, you have to keep your head on straight because it is down to you to make your creativity pay, and that's not for everybody. That isn't great. I do want to be clear because obviously, you know, having a multi-six-figure income is great, but lots of people will go, yeah, sure, but what was your net? What were your costs? Well, as I've already said, I am a multi-six-figure net author. So my net income after, so that's all profit, was multi-six figures. However, I do still have significant costs. Now, the biggest ones for me, probably in no particular order, because I didn't actually go and check the totals, but the most significant costs are shipping. So my Shopify, my website and my TikTok, between them, some months were over 20 grand turnover, and I spend probably between £500 and £1,200 a week in shipping. So, you know, the shipping costs are significant for that. And the next biggest cost were print runs. So I am now doing print runs like a traditional publisher, and you have to do a minimum of 500 books. And these are not small costs. The costs of print runs have run into 5 figures, but we have made the money back. So it's all good. And then, of course, we've got renting and the setup of a warehouse. Now, because of the shifting like calendar year versus tax year, my staffing costs are this year going to be one of the most significant costs. But last year, I still think the shipping and print runs were probably higher, equal to or higher than the staffing costs. But this coming year, staffing will still be will then increase and become a significant cost for running my business. Now, you'll note that Amazon ads and Facebook ads were not in that list because I don't run ads. That's not true. I do run Amazon ads, but I've had the same ads running for about 6 months and I haven't touched them, and they spend about $500 a month. Occasionally on a month where I have a book release, they'll spend up to $1,000. But typically, you know, we're talking about less than £5,000 a year, which on my turnover is minuscule in terms of a cost. So I don't account for any advertising budget in that respect. Okay, the warehouse, I wanted to give you some more specifics. So the warehouse at the moment is running at about 50% cost. So for every £100 made, it costs about £50 to make it. Now, that said, a lot of that cost is because I've had to pay out on racking. I've had to pay out on equipment. I've had to pay out on a deposit for the warehouse. You know, the deposit was nearly £2,000. I've had to pay out for the print runs, so on and so forth. So a lot of those costs are going to even out the longer that we are in there. And so I think that the profit will rise to between 55 and 65%, especially as we bring on more products and we also import books and products from abroad where our costs are much lower. I think that it's important that you understand that it's not all profit, it's not all sunshine and roses. In order to create a turnover that of this size, you do have to invest. It has cost tens of thousands to do what I'm doing. But of course, we are now also making tens of thousands. So, you know, you just have to decide, like, where do you want to spend your investment? Do you want to spend it on advertising? Do you want to spend it on staffing? Do you want to spend it on social media equipment and so on and so forth? Where is your skill set? What do you enjoy doing? And, you know, put that in your cake and smoke it or eat it, whatever the phrase is. Okay, so I did mention that secondary to those costs are staffing, but both staffing and advertising totaled 5.7% of my turnover. So really not a lot at all. Most of my personal marketing, most of the work that I do is content marketing on social media. And I personally use Sweat Equity to do this for the most part. I do now have a social media manager that will create content for me. But of course, I am my brand. So I do have to use my face. I'm very comfortable doing that, as I will talk to you about that in a minute. And it's something that I enjoy doing. So that's why I run my business the way that I run it. I am not comfortable doing ads. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. And I will do everything in my power to avoid having to do advertising like that. Now, I looked back at the last annual review and I had to laugh because there was a moment where I'd said in last year's that I'd looked back at the previous year. So this is 2 years ago now, and that I had thought that year 5 would be really different. And it was. And then last year, so in my year 5 annual lessons learned, I said the following. In terms of progress, if I look at this calendar year as opposed to the tax year, I've already surpassed this figure, which honestly is a bit astounding. I have no idea if it will continue, but if it does, then there's the potential to be a multi-six-figure author by the end of this calendar year. Big if, though. Oh my fucking God. I'm so hilarious. I'm so sweet and naive. Like, it wasn't an if. We went so fucking far beyond if. Like, I honestly don't really know how to do this update. I'm really struggling. And I think, like, I am equal parts scared and excited to even say what the next goal is. But, like, deep breath. No matter how long it takes, I want to hit 7 figures. And I want to do it as a sapphic author. And then I want to hit it net. I honestly can't make a statement about where I might be next year. The world is in turmoil. But, you know, I also kind of feel like my powers of prediction are tired. Like, I got it so wrong 2 years running. But, you know, I'm going to quietly hope for progress. I think it might be too much to ask, maybe, that I do it next year, but I'm not giving up. Like, I'm here for the long haul. So hopefully, you know, if it's not next year, then maybe it'll be the year after. I don't know, but I'm putting it out there. I'm telling the universe that my goal is 7 figures. Honestly, for anybody that has listened to this show for a long time, I don't think that's going to be a surprise. I don't think that's news to fucking anybody. Okay. In terms of this last year, I had to learn so much about money. Like, my head is still spinning. You know, there are so many things that I didn't even know I needed to know, you know, how to deal with it, how to invest it, pensions, tax changes. Like, I really fully, entirely restructured the way that I work with money in this last year, and it has been exhausting. And I know I'm not doing everything right yet. I'm not even doing some of the things that, you know, trusted friends and advisors have suggested. There are some things that I don't want to manage. I have now employed other people to manage certain parts of my, like, financial business just because it's not my area of expertise. I was doing it badly. And, you know, you take a hit in management fees, but actually I'm decidedly happier not having to deal with it. So yeah, I think that this will bring us on to the next, the first lesson. But the biggest thing for me in this last year, I think, was having to let go of money and to put it into a pension. I essentially had no choice over that. If I didn't give up the money, then I have to be careful what I say, but the more money you put into a pension, the lower you bring your net profit, which means you pay less tax. And that was a really hard thing for me because I want to be in control of my money. I don't really want to put any money in a pension, if I'm perfectly honest, but that's not the right way. That's not the right thing to do. It's not going to help me financially in the short term or the long term. So, you know, I had to do it. And letting go and giving up control of, quite frankly, huge wads of money for what will be several decades is extremely terrifying as a control freak and somebody who has always been in control of every part of their life. And also, you know, having to give up control of money that I've worked so hard for. But it was the right thing to do. It was important. It was a lesson learned. Let's put it that way. Okay, so in the show notes, like I said, I have included every single year's pie chart of my income breakdown from year 1, where 75% of my income was from freelance, all the way up to this year, where there was no freelance and, you know, 96% of my income was from book sales in various formats. So those are in the show notes if you want to go and have a look. The other thing that I have done is included an assets update. I always include a graphic. I've actually included 3 graphics this year. I wanted to include year 2 because that was the first time I made that asset list. I didn't do it in the first year, which is a bit sad, but I've got the graphic from year 2 and then the graphic from last year and then the graphic from this year. And it is quite the change. I was honestly astonished when I pulled it all together and saw the difference. I couldn't fucking believe it. Have I done that? Why have I included 3 years instead of just this year and last year? Well, I've done it because I feel like it shows you that time and patience matters. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is an author career. While I may be a fast writer, I am not a fast producer of books. But over time, I am building an empire. And I think the other thing that's really evident is that, you know, I have brought on a team in the last year. The team has got significantly bigger and the assets have got significantly bigger because there are so many things that I just didn't have the time to do, like create an omnibus. I just didn't have time to produce that, but the team has produced that for me. So the asset list has grown, and the bigger the asset list grows, the bigger the turnover gets. And I think that's really, really, really evident when you see visually, graphically, the explosion of assets. There's a couple of important things that I wanted to say at this point. One is that you do have to produce. And by that, I mean start and complete projects. And then, and this is the shitty bit, you have to let them go and put them out into the world. But the second thing that I think this shows is that you then need to iterate the products into as many iterations of your IP as you can, because they build up fast and they build up enormous potential from income. You know, I'm getting income from paperbacks, from hardbacks, from special edition hardbacks, special edition paperbacks, from audiobooks, like from omnibus, all of that, 6 different versions of the same thing, you know, and people... You think that you're saturating the audience, but what you're actually doing is providing new opportunities for people who like to consume content in different ways. And a third thing is more mindset, and that's to realize that not every single asset will produce equally for you. For example, the 3rd book in my Girl Games series is the least selling book. It doesn't do as well. I don't know why. I have no clue why. Maybe because it wasn't a sequential series. I'm not entirely sure. But that is my least well-selling Ruby book. Yet it still makes money. But I think it's important to know and accept that not every book is going to earn you the same money. I have finished the Vampire trilogy and still book 1 is my highest selling book. So I think it's just important to recognize that you will have some, you know, Roman Empire books and you'll have books that aren't, but they all bring in money. And when you have enough of them, they bring in a fuckload of money for you. Okay, 2 years ago, non-fiction was everything for me. I presented a statistic at a keynote that I gave last year in August in New Zealand. And the statistic was this, that in January 2023, I made £926 on Amazon. £926 in total. Of which 1.4%, so £13.16, was from fiction. So from my fiction books. The rest of it, 98.6%, was from non-fiction income. So basically, I wasn't making a good living. I was making an all right living when you added in all the money from freelance and all the other things. But even where I was making money from my books, it was from non-fiction. Roll on 17 months, so that was to July 2024. And I made £19,300 British pounds on Amazon, of which just £250, 1.2% of that income was from non-fiction. The rest, 98.8%, was fiction. Not only is that a 1,990% increase in income in 17 months, but it's also a complete 180-degree shift on where that income was coming from. And, you know, things have only grown since. Not every month is big, but, you know, and I've had a month that was over double that on Amazon since. But, you know, there are also many, many months that are significantly less than that. But what it has shown me is that it was the right time to shift. It was right to focus on Ruby, and that in doing that and taking that risk, my income has grown exponentially. The interesting thing for me is that my non-fiction income has remained somewhat stable. Last month it was around £200, but most months it's between 200 and 250, and that is with absolutely no marketing whatsoever, none. I don't really post about them at all. I think maybe the social media team post about it once or twice on Instagram, but essentially there's no advertising. I don't run Amazon ads to them either. In real terms, this actually means that it is obviously a huge decline, but it's also less than 1% of my income, less than 1% of my income. So that has given me an awful lot to think about in terms of, you know, where I should be focusing my time. But in pure assets, last year, so by the end of last year, I had 10 non-fiction titles, 11 fiction titles, 2 self-narrated audiobooks, and 3 licensed with Podium. And I had 1 at that point that was about to release, but I only had 3 out. I had 2 Korean non-fiction titles released, and 1 special edition and 1 unpublished title. This year, in year 6, I still have my 10 non-fiction titles, but I have 13 fiction titles, plus I have 2 unpublished manuscripts, one of which will definitely be released in tax year 7. So that's this tax year, this year now. I've got 3 non-fiction titles released in Korean, and I think 1 or 2 licensed for Arabic. I have 4 self-narrated audiobooks with 6 licensed, and another one that has just been agreed on. I have 7 special edition hardbacks, 8 special edition paperbacks, and 2 special edition omnibus books that are currently on pre-order. So I'm not sure if I should count them fully on year 6 or if I should wait till year 7, but either way they are on pre-order, so I'm mentioning them. I also have 1 additional manuscript that is written and as yet unpublished. I mentioned one of the fiction releases that is going to be released this year. So there's that one as well. So it's quite a significant increase on last year, just in terms of the numbers of, audiobooks, the numbers of iterations of books. And when you see it visually, it's pretty astonishing. And I do think some of that is down to the fact that I now have a team supporting me and they are able to take the burden on of some of the work. Okay, I think that is enough on the income and the asset update. I have waffled on for fucking ages. Okay, lesson 1, understanding what I'm good at. I feel like Ruby was the start of me understanding what I am actually good at, a true process of acceptance and separation. Acceptance that I can't and actually don't want to be good at everything, much to my surprise. But not only that, a separation of me from those things that I'm not so good at. For a long time, I really did feel like I had to do literally everything. Be everything, and as I'm sure long-time listeners understand, also never ask for help. I really, really struggled to ask for help. And the business explosion that happened over the last 18 months forced me, essentially, to change. It forced a shift, and it forced me to realise that if I didn't step back and if I didn't give things up and let go and ask for help and work with other people's, then I was going to go bust. I think one of the bad things, really, or not bad, that's the wrong word, but one of the unfortunate things about being an indie author is that it serves to encourage us in this kind of I have to do it all behaviour and thinking, because we have no publisher or team backing us up. We have no support system. It really is all on our shoulders. But that also doesn't mean that we can't build our own team around us. And I think so often we forget that, or certainly if you're a control freak like me, you easily forget it. But that is one of the things that I have learned, that not only do we not have to be on our own, but there comes a point where your goals are bigger than you and they are no longer one-man band goals. I cannot run a warehouse and write books. I can't do that. So if I want to run a warehouse, then I have to have a team around me. I had to accept that I legitimately can't do it all. And I think it was that moment of, oh, right, yeah, the business and my goals and my vision for the business is bigger than a one-person team, which was a real jarring shift from somebody who had sworn off ever working with other people, had left the corporate world, hating working in teams, hating being in an environment where there were other people around me. But I actually just think that that particular environment was pretty toxic. Now, one thing that I will say is that I really like being in charge. It's a lot easier for me to work in a team if I'm leading that team and I'm driving the vision. And not, one thing that I have prided myself on over the last 18 months is making sure that I only have people doing what they really are passionate about. I won't ask team members to do jobs that I know they won't like. I will just find another person. Joanna Penn recommended a book, Who Not How, and I think it's a really great lesson in understanding that if people are in their zone of genius or in their happy place doing work that they enjoy, they work better, faster, more efficient and happier, and therefore the team functions more efficiently. And there are a huge number of tasks that I don't enjoy doing in this business. The things that I love doing are writing the books and selling the books. And I think the other thing that I have realised is that I'm actually quite shit at a lot of stuff as well. I am not good with detail and I really shouldn't be taking on those tasks. Like, the mistakes that have happened, the shipping mistakes that have happened in the unit are because of me. They're not because of anybody else. It's because I am not good at detail. Like, we have these tiny bloody picking sheets that print out from Shopify that tell you, what to pick. But if you do not pay attention to, so it has a section that will be like 1 of 1 or like 1 of 2 or 2 of 2 or whatever. And that will tell you how many copies of each thing you need to do. But also it's things like noticing the detail of paperback versus hardback and things like that. Like, I just don't have an eye for those details. So it's actually important that I do get out of the way and I don't do those things in the unit because that's not my zone of genius. By outsourcing as much as I have been able to scale back the jobs on my to-do list as well. Like, I literally remember having, and this is no word of a lie, I would have 4-page to-do lists that had 2 columns on them in 12-point Times Roman font. It was a fucking insane number of to-dos and completely, utterly impossible. But now there are some days that I even struggle to write in my planner because there's nothing more than outline or write 5,000 words. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot more things on my to-do list than that. But I can hold them in my head, or there are few enough that I have a team member going, did you do this or did you do that? And I will go and do it. I don't have the balance right yet because I'm still trying to get back into the gym, which I'm hoping next week will be the week where I start to make that habit again. But I am certainly coming to the point where I have more balance. The more I have come to understand what I'm actually good at, or as Gay Hendricks would say in The Big Leap, my zone of genius, the more money my business has made. And it is kind of infuriating to realise that if I had just let go of stuff earlier, then I would be in this place sooner. But maybe I wouldn't, maybe it was an accumulation of various things that got me to this point. But I have realised that I like people. Fuck's sake. I hate that I like people, but I do like people. I really like working with the right people. I fucking love my team. They are incredible. I adore each and every one of them. And the other thing that I do love doing is empowering my team to make decisions. I have realised that there are certain things that I am very happy to not make decisions about in my business. And I didn't think that I would ever be in that place, but There really are. And I have seen that there are, like, the fewer decisions I have to make, the more my creativity has come back to me. Like, I was really worried at one point in the last year that I was never going to be able to write another book because I was so utterly fucking saturated that I just didn't think that I would ever be able to come up with story or plot again. But I have had to let go of even decision making in the business. And that is terrifying when it's your business and, you know, everything rests on your shoulders. But when you have the right team in place and you trust them, you can outsource some of the decisions. And certainly, you know, I still retain the creative decisions, the vision, the strategy, the direction, but I don't have to do the decisions on the day-to-day ground. I just don't. The other thing that I've realised is that I'm really great at the setup of projects, but I'm not as interested in things once the project is complete and running. And I think the warehouse is a really good example of that. I got so much energy from setting it up. I mean, don't get me wrong, it also fucked me 7 ways to Sunday. But once the warehouse was up and running and we moved into like more of the monotony of day to day of like having to consistently send out parcels, consistently be there for the collection, I very rapidly felt stifled by that consistency. I felt constricted. I felt tied, and I didn't like it. I wanted to be able to mix things up and to be able to get out and do different things, go back to writing. I wanted to be able to prance in and film some videos and fuck off again. And that is what having my new teammate has enabled me to do. And that has brought the joy back. So I think it was the warehouse that kind of made me realize that I do get a lot of energy from setting stuff up and, you know, having these big ideas and seeing them come to fruition. But then I have no interest in keeping them like running consistently. I mean, I want them to run consistently, but like, I don't want to have to do the job of keeping them running consistently. I just want, like, I'm very happy to have staff do that. So what this is, you know, the combination of this is what it's taught me is how to let go, or more that I have to let go regularly. With every project that I create, I'm actually now making new work, and not just for me, but for the team. And I'm not always the right person to do that work, and that is okay. Where it has got me is to realize that I have 4 jobs or 4 roles in my business. And they are as follows. First and most importantly is creating new stories. There is nobody else that can do that. I am the creator of stories. Therefore, I have to prioritize that. The second one is understanding the market and readers. I don't think anybody else in my business, I mean, the team understands, but they don't understand in the way that I do, because I spend the time doing the market research. I spend the time on socials, understanding, listening to readers, reading the market. And I just think that that is part and parcel of having competition as number one. It's my natural inclination to be buried vag deep in the market and understanding the market. Number 3 is having the vision for the business, understanding, seeing the future, knowing where we're going, and being the driver of that. That is my role as CEO and as creative. And last but by no means least, I am also the brand. So there are lots of authors that will stay behind their books. They will use their books as the brand. That's not me. I fucking love social media. I love being on camera. I love video marketing. I love being a silly twat on videos and making people laugh. So I'm very, very happy to be the brand. And that means selling is my job. Because I am the brand and the adverts aren't doing the work for me, it is my job to sell. It is my job to create video marketing content. It doesn't mean that I have to do all of that. It is also partly my team's job. My team write the newsletter. My team will create the content calendar for Instagram, for example. It's their job to make sure the products are tagged. It's their job to make sure that we are advertising things equally. But in terms of video marketing and making sure that we are maintaining sales, that is my job. Okay, so alongside understanding what I'm good at, so I think I ought to point out that anything else is not me. Like no other thing other than what goes into those 4 is me. So for example, I don't need to maintain my mailing list. My team do that. I don't need to write captions for social media. I don't need to upload products to Shopify. I don't even need to format my own books. The team does that. The team loads them up onto the dashboards. Like none of that admin work is me. I don't do any of that anymore. And it is the most free I have felt in a really, really long time. So I think like alongside understanding what I'm good at, I have realized over the last year how good my competition is at understanding the market and predicting trends. And I feel a little bit like I'm struggling to put my finger on something tangible to tell you on what it is that I've understood, but I do feel like I understand the market in a way that I didn't before. I think TikTok is partly responsible for that because it has taught me to speak the language of readers. The repeated exposure to data and like live algorithm feedback, which was completely instant, was super helpful. What it enabled me to do was recognize what resonated with readers. Sure, some of that is algorithmic, but also what isn't algorithmic is the number of people that choose to comment, right? Like if people comment, then it has resonated with them. If people have liked it or saved it, that has resonated with them. So, I was able to look at, keywords. I was able to look at hooks. I was able to look at imagery composition, video composition over and over and over again. I post 5 videos a day across my 2 accounts every day consistently. That is a lot of fucking data to look at and to pull and to tweak and iterate, and it is only time that has given me that quantity of data. And really the way that I kind of see social media now is as a game. Like it feels like a game to me. The rules are constantly changing in this game, but it is a game. And I think if you are happy to look at social media as a game, then you can use it to your advantage. And that is very, very, very much what I feel like I'm doing. I'm no good at advertising or Facebook ads. I don't have any interest in looking at that kind of data. But looking at audience data and seeing how people respond to me, which is what social media is something that I really fucking love. It's probably my significance and my competition as a combination. But that is why I like playing the social media game, because it is also instant, whereas I feel like I have to be a bit more patient with advertising, and this girl she doesn't have no patience whatsoever, right? But the other thing it's done is exposed me to a lot of other genres, a lot of other types of marketing. And so I can trend spot in a much deeper way now than I had been, and kind of learn those like transposition techniques. And by that, I mean, I don't fucking know. Maybe it was a cat food video or like a carpet cleaning company, but maybe the video caught my eye and there was something about their hook or the way that they had filmed had worked, and then I iterated that into sapphic romance. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but like that constant feedback cycle and exposure to like seeing what works and what doesn't is exposure to failure. Like I have failed way more times than I have gone viral. And that has really, really, really helped with resilience. I feel like if anybody in this industry is struggling with resilience, it's a little bit masochistic, but exposing yourself, forcing yourself to do, say, like 6 months of 3 videos a day or 2 videos a day on social media, best thing that you can do. Because most of your videos will not go viral. Not even most, like 99% of them will not go viral. But you may be able to get your average from 200 views to 2,000 views. And that is enough. It is enough. Because with most social media at the moment, and I say at the moment because it always changes, but at the moment, I would say for me, most like it's 70-30 on views. 70% of my views and therefore my sales come from backlist videos, and 30% come from new videos. Okay, on to lesson 2, understanding my energy flow. My energy, oh boy, has shifted in the last year. And I think that some of that may be the relief of having run what feels like a marathon and being a wee bit fucking tired. Like I finally hit an amount of income where there's actually money left over at the end of the month, and I don't have to constantly worry about how I'm going to pay the next bill. And that brings with it some relief. I think some of this might be my age as well. I am am now approaching 40, and I will say that for the first time in my life, I don't feel like a teenager anymore. I have spent a long time and most of my 30s still feeling very much like a young person, and I don't feel young anymore. I feel fucking tired. So as much as I'll, like try to claim that I'm still 18 or 16 in my brain, my body is no longer 16 or 18. Like, I am noticing changes, and it's not as easy to recover anymore, and I do need a little bit more rest than I used to. I think the other thing is that as my career has blossomed, my kiddo has also reached the point where the parenting energy required is shifting too, and not necessarily less. He is rapidly approaching teenage years. He will be a teenager next year. He's going to be 12 this year. And the pressure and tensions are definitely changing, like in a weird way. It's sort of like, they need you less physically, but they need you more mentally. And that is a different kind of pressure. Social media has also shifted in the last year. The level of intensity in my comments and my messages has increased to the point where, first of all, I couldn't keep up doing it on my own. But also, I started to feel like I was spending my time answering random strangers on the internet instead of responding to my family, and I was not okay with that. I have outsourced a lot of the comment replies and DM management so that I can focus on the things that I'm good at, like video marketing and understanding the trends and algorithms, but also because emotionally I felt like I needed to put a boundary in place. We were definitely getting comments and approaches in DMs that were not appropriate, and I needed to take myself away from that. I also feel like energetically, I've sort of spent a good portion of this last year withdrawing overall. No became my kind of mantra. I had to say no to loads of things that I wasn't used to saying no to. And that in a way does lead to withdrawing. Like, I have gone last year, I think I did 7 conferences. This year I'm like doing 1, maybe 2. But that has also meant that I have withdrawn from people, I've withdrawn from social media, and I'm not sure if I've got the balance right. Like, I feel like I was giving too many pieces of myself away and leaving nothing for myself and my family. But also, I now feel like maybe I've withdrawn a little bit too much in places. I'm probably not getting enough people time, or at least enough non-work people time. Like, I don't really have much by the way of friend circles outside of work. But, there isn't enough of me to keep giving out, and I was exhausted in like a non-physical way. I was kind of exhausted energetically and mentally, but not necessarily physically. I have also kind of stopped messaging in groups, Facebook groups, DM groups, WhatsApp groups. I've stopped going to as many conferences. I've stopped saying yes to teaching. I've stopped saying yes to speaking. I've stopped saying yes to any odd projects or being interviewed, or like, I literally said no to everything. And it's sad in one respect, because I'm losing a whole bunch of things that were in my life, but also I am seeing my creativity rise, and that is what I want. And it's also creating more time for me to do other things, like, I don't know, look after myself, do some self-care, go to the bloody gym. And apparently having 1 weekend off is not enough to recoup like the last 10 years of energetic expense and usage. So who knew? I think the other major lesson I've learnt this year is what my rest actually looks like and what it should look like. I get a little bit tired of people telling me, you need to slow down, you need to rest, you need to take a break, you need to do blah, blah, blah. I don't actually need to do any of those things. Like, yes, I do need to rest, but rest isn't sitting on my ass in front of the TV. And I think the last couple of weeks have really shown me that. I got sick and I was forced basically to stay on the sofa for a couple of days, and I was really fucking low at the end of those 2 days. I was so low mentally and bored and just feeling really sad because I hadn't been able to do anything, and I hadn't, gotten up, I hadn't gone out, hadn't done anything really. And so I don't think that is a good form of rest for me. That said, I have very consistently published 3 books a year since I started publishing, but given that I only take 5 weeks from first word to handing the book to the editor, why am I not publishing more? And I think what I've realised is that I was resting by doing other things. I was taking on other projects like speaking or going to conferences or setting up warehouses or creating courses or running this podcast. And I love all of those things, but they are not necessarily the rest that I actually need in order to be more creative. What I actually need is to go to the gym. What I actually need is to read. What I actually need is to be out in the world, go traveling more, go to museums, go to castles, go to countries. What I actually need is to find some friends locally and go for a fucking coffee. Like, that is what I need in terms of creative rest. And I'm not getting that. And it's because if I have a gap, I am predisposed to filling it with other types of work and calling it rest. And yeah, in a way it was rest because I wasn't expending creative energy, but it's also not necessarily what I want to be doing anymore either. So my big experiment this year is to try and stop all of the shit that isn't like creating and generating energy for creation, and to try and give my body what it needs and to see what the result is. I have no idea. I would really like the result to be more output, but if it's not, that's okay too. Maybe next year I'll take on a few more things again. If it's not, if the result is extra output and I do write more books than I've ever written, then maybe that tells me everything that I need to know. And I have a feeling that it will probably be a balance of the two. So this is going to be my big experiment for the next year. Okay, lesson 3, growth means change. Change is both inevitable and necessary. Humans, by their nature, are curious, and curiosity means evolution. I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that if you want to stay in this industry for the long term, then you have no choice but to keep getting better and to keep bettering yourself. This essentially is competition. It's life. It is survival of the fittest. And competition will always increase. Technology will keep modernizing. Reader desires will keep evolving, which means that adapting is your only survival mechanism in this industry. I used to really hate change, and I'm not going to lie, there are still times when I do hate change, especially if I am having to learn something that I don't know and I'm not an expert in it. I fucking hate it. But if you want to be better, if you want to stay in this industry and stay playing this game, then you have to be better, because what you've already done is what got you here. If you want to keep doing the same thing, then you'll stay exactly where you already are. But for me, there are other places that I want to go, which means I need to keep iterating. I need to keep changing. I need to keep evolving. I feel like I've kind of spoken at length about change in a roundabout way, and about letting go and about adapting in this episode, which is why it feels timely that I make this announcement. Over the last year, I have realised that in order to stay in my zone of genius, and more to stay in my happy place, then I have to say no to an increasing amount of projects, requests, and activities. No, though, as a recovering people pleaser, is my least favourite word. And yet saying no over the last year is what has helped me to be happier, to do more of what I love, and also to rest. Sacha Black as a name and a brand and a business brought me so much joy. It enabled me to leave my day job and to change my life. But she also wasn't a sustainable business. I was only just making ends meet. And in order to make those ends meet, I was running myself into the ground. Ruby has changed all of that. She has enabled me to live the dream that I wanted to live when I left my day job. She is everything that I had dreamt was possible and believed that I could do. She is the life that I don't want to take a vacation from. She has enabled me to take a second breath and to spend time on the work that I left my day job for and to spend more time with my family. I don't have to work evenings anymore, and fuck me, I do not want to work evenings anymore. I am so tired of having to work 24 hours a day. And that's despite me loving my job. All things change, all things end. Which is why I have decided that this is the final episode of the Rebel Author podcast. I didn't think I'd find it hard to say that. And I suppose in some way, this may be my greatest rebellion of all. To leave behind the thing that actually started this journey, the thing that took me on the path to my dream. It is scary. It is honestly fucking terrifying to let go of what once was my life raft. But if this show has taught me anything, it's that we rebel to create joy. And from joy comes all of our success. And Ruby has created more joy than I ever thought was possible. Oh, this is hard. This show has been my companion on this journey, this writing journey, and in this business. And it is absolutely gut-wrenching, to be perfectly honest, to be ending this. But I also know that it is the right thing to do. To say thank you to each and every listener, whether this is your first episode or your 200th. I hope that the show has made some kind of a difference to you. I hope that you have taken something from the interviews and learned something helpful about the industry, about your dreams, and about writing or marketing. I want to say thank you to the show's sponsors and to, above all, the show's patrons. You guys are incredible. Some of you have been with me from the start, and that is an honour that I don't even know how to process. The support, the community, the kindness that you have shown each other is unbelievable. There is no community like the Rebel Author community. Our Slack group is just wonderful, and it is the thing that I will miss the most about not running this show. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who had listened, to the community, the writing community, the indie community, and to every single one of you who sent in Rebel stories. They have brought me joy every single week. It has been a fucking honour to serve this community, and I hope that I have made a difference to you on your journey. That service is the greatest thing that we can do with our life, and I hope that this show has been of a service to you. It is my hope that at some point over the next year or 5 years or 10 years that I get to hear about you, your listener successes, that I get to hear that one day you have finally published that book and that you have swathes of readers clamouring at your door for the next one, and that you are finally following your dreams. A few notes of practicalities that I wanted to tell you about. I am going to continue to pay to host this podcast. I want to leave it open because whilst I'm saying goodbye to Sasha for now, I'm not saying goodbye forever. I would like to hope that in a year's time, I might come back and do the 7th annual Lessons Learned episode. I'm not going to make that promise, but it's something that I hope to do. I hope that maybe one day I will drop in with some updates, maybe some more solo shows. I don't know. I want to leave it open so that I have that possibility. In terms of Patreon, when this goes out, I will have already shut down the Patreon. Nobody will be charged again. If you are already in the Slack community group, that will stay open. I am not going to close it, but I also won't be running it anymore. So that will become your community, your support group, and you can run it as you feel fit. I hope that if you are new and you have only just come to this show, that you can go back and listen to the almost 300 episodes, the half a decade of content that is there. And I hope that it provides some help and use to you. Which brings me on to lesson 4. No matter what. God. This is always better. This is the same lesson that I come back to every single year. And whether I'm talking to you in a year or not, I hope that I continue to remember this lesson. I have put the photo from my corporate life, the photo that represents my lowest moment creatively, into the show notes like I do every year. I look at it and it is a stark reminder of the pain that riddled my mind back then, that used to manifest itself as physical bodily sickness. I was constantly ill. I was constantly yearning and aching for something more and something different. And it still astounds me every day that this is the life that I'm now living. I try and practice gratitude every day because there are no words to explain the depths of my gratitude. To you, the listeners, to the community, to the readers, to every other indie author who has ever answered a question, supported me, given back to this community. I am so fucking grateful not to be where I was in that photo. I often look back at the photo and I always say that I don't recognise the woman in that photo, but I feel like that is a disservice to who I was back then. I feel like I am doing a disservice to myself because in some ways, she is the strongest version of me. She is the one that fought despite being in pain. She stayed the course despite wanting to quit, despite not seeing success for a whole decade, despite struggling to pay the bills and not knowing if I was going to have enough food money left at the end of the month. She stayed the course. That Sasha fought through everything. She fought through my lowest moments. And I have come to realize that there is power in your lowest moments. It is from them that you find out who you truly are. You find out what you are actually made of. Because if that is where you are right now, if you are listening and you feel like shit, you are in those low moments, you're still in a job that you fucking hate, I am talking to you right now. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of the fact that you are still fucking fighting. Be proud that you are, whether it's one word, one sentence, one page, one chapter, whatever you are doing, you are making progress towards your dream. I believe that creative people are the strongest humans I know, and I believe that you can fight your way out. You can keep going and you can make your dream come true. Wherever you are right now, you don't have to be there in a year's time. Hell, you don't even have to be there tomorrow. You are creative. You can find your way out and you can create a new path. You can make your dream a reality. I said it last year, but it's as true this year as it was then. As a creative, you are a magician. We have the power to change lives with our words, with your words. Your words contain magic, but not if they stay in your mind, not if they stay in your notebooks, and not if they stay on your computers. There are people out there that need your words and your story. They need to feel the connection that only you can give them. They need the meaning that only your way of telling that story will give them. If I leave you with one message this year, it's that it counts. Everything that you are doing counts. Every single word that you lay down, every action that you take, every social media post, every ad, every finished book and story, it all counts, but you must keep going. You must keep trying, keep changing, keep evolving, keep letting go. You have to be willing to say goodbye to one path in order to say hello to a new one. The one that potentially you are always meant to be on. Each action that you take, whether it's big or small, or somewhere in between, hello Rebel Stories, is a step towards your dream. And no matter where you are on this journey, it doesn't have to be your resting place. This isn't the end. Never settle, never accept, always strive. I am so proud of this community, of the support that we give each other, the kindness that thrives when creatives surround each other with like minds. Genuinely in awe of you all, and I am honoured to have gotten to watch so many of you follow your dreams. I am honoured for every email that I receive telling me that this episode or that interview helped you on your journey. Know that no matter how hard it gets, no matter how many dark days you experience or how many of those fucking awful photos you take, no matter how many setbacks there are or how many missed goals, there is always tomorrow. You can always start again, try again, ask for help. This community will always have someone there with an open hand willing to help pull you up. Because this life is worth it. It is worth it. The fight, the tears, the struggles, the yearning, the longing, the rage, the frustration and the sadness, all of it is worth it. This life is so much better than the misery I was living in. And I hope that I never, ever forget that I always stay grateful. I live an honoured life serving readers with my creativity, and I wish that for every single one of you listening, that each one of you fights long enough and hard enough that you get to live your dream alongside me. There will always be space in my arms. I will always be open to you, and I will always be cheering for you. Today, tomorrow, and in 20 years. Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.